Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at some of y'all's hottest NBA takes. I took to Twitter asking you to give me some of them to react to in a video, and I picked 8 of my favorites to go over. It's been about 2 weeks since we did one of these videos, and you know that 2 weeks in the NBA lifespan is a lifetime. So we've got to go through. I'm sure a lot of your opinions have changed, and some of my opinions on some of these takes might have been way different at the beginning of the year. So I'll talk about how some of them have shifted, and overall whether I'm buying or selling into what the take is. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos, and let's go ahead and get right into it. First take comes from Connor, who says that Tatum is not top 5 in the MVP race right now. This is one that I already am not a big fan of. Jayson Tatum, in my opinion, is either the leader, the second place, maybe even the third place guy if you really want to push him back in the MVP race. He's been phenomenal all season, and sure, the Celtics have taken a bit of a step back from their original dominance, but they still are the first seed in the Eastern Conference, and Tatum himself has been amazing. He is scoring around 30 points per game. He's rebounding. His playmaking is better than it's ever been. He's a big reason why that offense has been such a juggernaut over the course of the entire year. And overall, his perimeter defense too has been phenomenal. He's been one of the best perimeter defenders in the league so far this season. He really just orchestrates everything for them. Sure, he's got a good bit of help with Jaylen Brown and a great supporting cast, but he is undoubtedly, unquestionably the best player on that roster. He's their leader and easily the biggest reason why they're the first seed right now in a very tough Eastern Conference. And if they do finish right there in that spot, I think Tatum might even be the front runner all the way through. Right now, you could argue like maybe Nikola Jokic is over him, but that's really the only name that I could see pushed past him at this moment. However, saying he's not top 5 is a bit too far in my opinion. This next take comes from Wiseman fan, who says that if Jordan Poole was a starter on his own team, he would be considered a top 5 shooting guard. Once again, a take that I do not really like. Jordan Poole has been great as of recently. He started pretty slow, but now he's kind of getting back to the form that we saw him in last season that secured him the bag over the course of this past offseason. He's been great stepping up in the absence of Steph Curry and really helped keep the Warriors afloat. He's been their primary offensive option on most nights, had some 30-point games, 40-point games, and yeah, he is the reason why the Warriors have not completely fallen off a cliff without their franchise point guard. However, to say that he would be a top 5 shooting guard as a starter is a bit too far in my opinion. Even the way he's been playing right now, he's not a top 5 shooting guard, and he's been given a ton of opportunities in the absence of some of their other options. Andrew Wiggins has also missed some time. Let's just think about the shooting guards in the league right now. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jaylen Brown, who we just talked about a second ago, Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Desmond Bane, Tyrese Maxey, Anthony Simons, DeJounte Murray. That's 9 off the top of my head. I'm even forgetting, I think, Anthony Edwards too. I don't think I said his name. That's 10 right away that I would take over Jordan Poole right now. Maybe he could be over a few of those guys if he got a more expanded role, but I would take at least probably 8 or 9 shooting guards over Jordan Poole at this point. Maybe you could argue top 10, but top 5 is way too far in my opinion. Next take comes from Paul, and he says Shea first team all NBA. I love this take because I'm a big Shea Gilgeous-Alexander fan, probably the biggest Thunder fan in the world in my very humble opinion. However, I don't think that this is correct at the moment, unfortunately. Shea has been phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, he's become a superstar, and I told people for years that he was going to eventually be a franchise MVP caliber player when it was all said and done. Now, it is happening even sooner than I expected. I thought this was going to take a bit longer, maybe till like his late 20s, say 27, 28. However, he's doing it still very young, earlier than 25, which is incredible. It means that he's got so many years of high level, maybe even MVP caliber play ahead of him, especially as the supporting cast improves. And I do think he will rack up a couple of first team all NBA selections as his career progresses. However, this year, I think it might just be a bit too early. Right now, maybe Steph Curry misses a lot of the year based on his current injury, but I think Steph Curry and Luka Doncic are both ahead of him at the moment. Maybe if the Thunder all of a sudden have a massive surge and get up into the playoff picture, that could help Shea's case out a little bit if the Golden State Warriors continue to sink the way that they have for most of the year. But I think that those two guards right now are a bit more deserving of that first team all NBA spot. I do think Shea should absolutely be on one of the teams, probably second team, if not third team at the absolute minimum, but first team all NBA, I think it's just a bit too early, but his time will absolutely come. This next take comes from Zero Chris, who says that the Timberwolves will not only miss the playoffs, but that they will trade Cat in the near future. This one I'm buying a bit more into than some of the past ones, mainly because the Rudy Gobert trade has absolutely blown up in Minnesota's face. It was a big move, a huge risky one at that, because putting Rudy Gobert, a traditional center, next to Cat, who's long time been the center and isn't really a 4 defensively especially, next to each other, it didn't make a ton of sense, but the Timberwolves seemed really determined to do so. There were rumors all offseason that they wanted a true center to put next to Cat and move him to the 4. They got what they wanted. It's not been very good. Right now, they would probably miss the playoffs. Cat has missed some time, which does hurt them a bit, but even when the team has been fully healthy, it hasn't looked like a nice fit. Rudy Gobert clogs up the paint for Anthony Edwards. Karl Anthony Towns isn't built defensively to be a 4, and Rudy Gobert himself is showing some signs of regression. So all in all, they're going to have to make some drastic move in the near future if they want to salvage this thing. And we've seen a pattern recently that front offices don't really like to typically say that they made mistakes. For example, Rob Pelinka and the Los Angeles Lakers shouldn't have traded for Russell Westbrook. They should have brought in some solid role players instead, and now they're being really stubborn to make another trade because they refuse to admit that it was a mistake. I think we could see something very similar with the Minnesota Timberwolves, where they're saying, trading for Gobert, it didn't work because him and Cat don't work. So we're going to trade Cat and build around Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert, trading Cat for maybe a better 4 or a 3. Maybe D'Angelo Russell gets moved for a better point guard too, and they try and reshape this roster around that duo. That is something that I could absolutely see. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe they end up sticking with this core for the long term because everybody is under contract for a decent bit of time, but I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. This next take comes from Tavion, who says that LeBron James is no longer a top 10 player in the NBA. And this one's kind of tough. At the beginning of the year, it felt like we were finally seeing the decline of LeBron James and that his shooting was down, his burst didn't feel quite there, but eventually he managed to turn things around, and now he's putting up monster performance after monster performance in the absence of Anthony Davis. However, it's not leading to many wins. Not that that's LeBron's fault, because the supporting cast is really, really rough, and overall, it's hard to gauge. I don't think he's top 5 anymore because I have kind of a set top 5 in my mind that I think are just better than him at this moment. And then there's some other guys that I would have maybe at like 6 and 7. To me, he's probably between like 8 and 10. I think that's the range that I would have LeBron in at the moment. It's just hard to say as well because LeBron James, typically we see the best basketball from him in the playoffs. He gets to the playoffs and he was great all regular season. When he gets in those high leverage games is really when he flips the switch and we're like, oh, this guy's a top 5 player. However, we haven't seen him in the playoffs last year, and in this year, I don't think we're going to see him in there again. The Lakers aren't very good, and it seems like they're hesitant to make any moves. So without seeing LeBron James in those playoff moments, he continues to feel like he's sliding down the board as younger and younger guys continue to pass him and rise up into their own forms of superstardom. LeBron James is still one of the best in the world, and I do think he is still top 10, but he's kind of teetering on that border. This next hit comes from Prey, who says that Luka Doncic has the potential to be in the GOAT debate when it's all said and done. And this one feels very, very early to really give a true opinion on, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes, just from a pure numbers standpoint. The points that he's putting up, the assists, the rebounds, he might be the league leader in triple doubles all time when it's all said and done, passing Russell Westbrook with the rate that he's currently at. He's carrying a somewhat subpar roster to a pretty solid playoff spot at the moment. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year, and all this to say, he's just 23 years old. There are a lot of people that are saying, oh, he's never had any true team success, although once again, I definitely consider a conference finals berth to be pretty solid team success on its own. But most all-time greats don't win titles until they're like 26, 27, which was the case with LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Those guys didn't win titles until their late 20s when they really got into their true primes. And that's the craziest part. Luka's putting up like a 60-20-10 game, the first of its kind, and he's not even in his prime yet. Once he gets to his prime, and hopefully the Mavericks put a better roster around him, I would be surprised if he didn't start racking up MVP awards, start racking up NBA titles, or at least trying to compete for them. And overall, I think when it's all said and done, Luka Doncic absolutely has a chance to be in that GOAT debate conversation, but it's all going to depend on the roster around him and his longevity. Next hit comes from Pokey's Eon, who says that it's time for the Suns to trade Chris Paul. Now, the problem with this one for me is that I don't know what they would get from Chris Paul that would make them better than they are right now with CP3. Sure, he's continuing to kind of decline. He's worse than he was last season, albeit he still has some pretty impactful games, but it's not the same Chris Paul we knew of old. He's making a lot of money, and Devin Booker needs some help. He cannot be the sole high-level scoring option on the team. He needs some options around him, and maybe you could trade Chris Paul for an elite second option. You would have to give up some of that playmaking, but bringing that extra scoring could be the key to the Suns returning to the NBA Finals for the first time in the past few years. However, I don't know if that's what you're going to get from Chris Paul. If you trade CP3, he's older, he's declining, he's on a massive contract. To me, it feels like you would at best get like an even player for Chris Paul, if not a little bit worse and maybe some capital. But I don't think they're going to get a significant upgrade for CP3. In my opinion, the better route to go would be trading maybe some of their young talent to try and put immediate winning now pieces around Chris Paul and Devin Booker, maximizing the last few years that duo has together before CP3 probably retires. Maybe you could deal DeAndre Ayton if he's not happy. Cam Johnson, they've definitely got to move on from Jay Crowder at some point, but I think that's a better route to trying to compete than giving up on Chris Paul at this moment, who's not going to get you a great return. And this final take comes from Cameron, who says that Devin Vassell is the future of the Spurs, not Keldon Johnson. Keldon's game is a bit more role player like, while Devin Vassell's feels more like an archetype for a star player. And at the beginning of the year, I may not have agreed with you. I still like Devin Vassell's game a lot, but to me it felt like this was going to be Keldon Johnson's big breakout season. And he has had a pretty good year, but Devin Vassell is really the one that has truly impressed me the most. His ability to create a shot is better than I thought it was. His defense is still there as well, and it feels like he has potential to really be one of the stars on this Spurs team down the line when they're trying to get back to competing for championships as they did for such a long time under Greg Popovich. Vassell has really risen out, and I feel like a lot of people sleep on him because San Antonio isn't great, but once they start rising back up to being a playoff team, a lot of people are going to know the name Devin Vassell, and he's going to get a lot more fans. Every time I watch the Spurs play, it feels like he's torching guys, he's hitting super difficult shots, and that is part of what his game has impressed me. He isn't getting a lot of easy looks. He's taking consistently super contested mid-range jumpers or threes or attacking the basket. He's still making it work and still putting up pretty solid numbers. So yeah, I've become a bigger fan of Devin Vassell, while I'm probably a bit lower in Keldon Johnson than I was heading into the season. Those are all the takes I have for y'all today. If you want to leave me any hot takes in the comment section below, go ahead and do that, and I'll react to as many as I can. I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. And also, go ahead and comment down below any of your opinions on any of these hot takes. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.